Something I've been thinking a lot about lately, besides flattening and straightening this beam, I don't even know what to call this. A concept, a theory, an idea. But this is profound, probably the most profound thing I've ever spent any time thinking about. Probably the most important. And it's nothing new. Okay, this concept's been around forever, but I've never heard it explained in a way that how I'm thinking about it now. Okay, and I haven't thought this through. This is way too deep for my shallow mind, but it's important. So, hey, we're going to explore this idea. And here's the simple version. Okay, there's two value systems, two hierarchies that we all adhere to. There's the natural and there's the social. Okay, and some of us are going to be oriented more towards one than the other. And okay, I know that doesn't sound like much, but the implications are huge, and we get so much from each of those. Okay, from the natural, we get math, we get science, we get laws of nature, the laws of physics, reason and logic. From the social, we get civilization. Okay, so both of these are some pretty profound, deep stuff here. And as to which one we're oriented towards the most, I think it depends mostly on our environment. Okay, and what got me thinking about this? I know there's a lot of political polarization in the U.S. right now, in the West, but in the U.S. in particular. And myself, I'm very conservative, and a lot of what I'm hearing from the far left especially, for me, is just insanity. I mean, there's no other way to describe it, or at least so I thought. But what I came to realize is it's not insanity. It's very rational thinking. Right? And this begins generally in the cities. Okay, well, the reason being, people in the cities think socially. That's what the hierarchy, the value system that they adhere to mostly. It's the social rather than the natural. Those of us that are in more rural areas, we're closer to nature. We think more as far as the natural. That's our primary value system. Okay, and example, and I think this will clarify a lot of this. Okay, Ketanji Jackson, Supreme Court Justice. I remember during her Senate confirmation hearing, a senator asked her if she could define what a woman was. Okay, and I'm paraphrasing all this. I don't remember the exact words, but she said she could not. She wasn't an expert and wasn't qualified to define what a woman was. Okay, she lied. I mean, it's just a straight up obvious lie. Ketanji Jackson's a smart person. She knows what a woman is. She knows that it is an adult human female. We all know what that is. We don't need an expert to tell us. All right, so she just blatantly lied. I'm guessing under oath, or at least it's definitely on record. It's right there in front of God and the world to see. And she had no problem lying about that. And I thought, you know, is she just insane? And when I knew she couldn't be, again, I know she's a smart person. Okay, well, she adheres to the social. Okay, the social is very different than the natural. The natural, and that's where we get math, science, physics, all of that. That's where we get truth from. Okay, the postmodernists, there's no right answer, everything's subjective, all that stuff. Okay, in the natural, there's a right answer. There is truth. This is how it is. Okay, so the sun, it's a continuous nuclear reaction, and we feel the heat from it, thankfully. Okay, so the laws of physics, even though we don't fully understand all of them yet, there's still a lot to learn there. They're real. They have very real consequences. Okay, in cities, though, we become removed from the consequences of the natural. How many people, those of you in cities, how many of you design skyscrapers? I'm guessing not many. That's a pretty specialized field there. Okay, well, the person that designs a skyscraper, there are certain laws of physics they have to adhere to, the architects and engineers involved in that. Okay, so they have to know exactly how much stress a beam can endure, how loads are transferred through the system eventually down to the foundation. They have to know that stuff. The physical properties of the materials. Okay, none of that's subjective or open to different interpretations. Okay, but for most people in a city, their livelihood, their existence is dependent upon other people. Okay, as a result, they think differently. Okay, Ketanji Jackson, the reason she said she wasn't qualified, it's because her livelihood was dependent upon her answer. That was a very political question. All right, her side that was supporting her, the progressives, their narrative that they've been pushing is, well, there's no difference between male and female. They're just practically the same. Okay, she couldn't go against that. Okay, I could go against that, and anybody that adheres to the natural could go against that, but she couldn't. Okay, and everybody, almost everybody within a city, they're dependent upon other people. Even in the mob, okay, the mafia, everybody in the mafia is dependent upon each other. Okay, so they have to have social skills. They have to put social rules first. Okay, well, in a city, if you're a lawyer, how do you progress within your field? And keep in mind, this is in cities, everybody has a profession. Okay, that's their livelihood. That's how they feed their families. Okay, so it is important. All right, well, how do you progress in most of the things that are in a city? How do you move up as a lawyer? How do you move up as a politician? How do you move up as a police officer or anything in a city just about? All right, well, it's all dependent upon other people and what they think of you and the people that are above you and the people that are below you, especially an elected position. Okay, so people tend to think differently that way. Okay, so Ketanji Jackson obviously lying about that. To her, she was expected to, and she knew it, and it didn't bother anybody on her side that she lied because she gave the accepted answer by her side. It was, you know, call it tribal, whatever you want to call it, political, her side. Okay? Had she answered that honestly, or had she answered things honestly in the past, she wouldn't have ever progressed to the point of ever becoming a nominee for the Supreme Court. Politician, if a politician gave an honest answer, they probably wouldn't go far as a politician. Same for a lawyer, same for a police commissioner, the mayor, city council, county councils, you name it. Restaurant owners, property developers, Donald Trump. I mean, everybody within a social system is dependent upon everybody else in the system, and that's where the value is placed. Okay, now people in more rural areas, dependent upon the natural system. Okay, it's a completely different world, completely different way of thinking. So a farmer, rancher, anybody in those fields, they're not confused about the difference between male and female. They can't be. They'd go out of business in 5 minutes if they were. I don't care if it's somebody that has apple orchards or any orchard. They have to understand pollination, male and female. If they're raising livestock, male and female is pretty important in that. Chickens, just raising chickens, you've got to know the difference. Okay, and then honesty comes out of the natural. And at first I was thinking of this as conservative versus liberal, but it's not. Okay, this is way beyond that. This is way deeper than that. This is way more profound than that. All right, and I think generally conservatives tend to think more in natural terms, or their values are oriented that way, whereas liberals are oriented more towards the social. All right, but I think the terms liberal and conservative here are just kind of irrelevant at this point. It's more urban versus rural. Okay, the liberals, the Democratic Party, that term doesn't mean anything anymore. There are very few traditional, old-fashioned liberal Democrats left. There's progressives now. They're completely different. But the value system, I'm not going to say it's changed or different, but the value system now of the left is definitely social. Okay, conservatives tend to be more rural. Okay, so anyway, it isn't liberal or conservative, it's natural versus social. And any of this is where it gets really tricky. We all have both. But for things to work optimally, they both have to be integrated. Okay, we need both. All of us do. We need to interact with other people. Antisocial cannot work out good a lot of times. It can have some bad outcomes. All right. But when the social becomes unhinged from the natural, it goes off into insanity, corruption. All right. And I said, this is in our history. This is ancient Athens. This is Rome. This is any fallen civilization you want to take a look at. Okay, and in every civilization in the past, any civilization that had writing, all right, there are so many accounts from so many of those civilizations where people of the time were commenting on how much purer, how much more natural the countryside was versus the cities. Okay, and that was, again, Athens, Rome. I'm sure it's Babylon. Okay, in our literature, Lord of the Rings, okay, the Shire, it represented all that was good and pure. It was the natural. It was the natural and the social integrated properly. Okay, but heavily tilted toward the natural. The evil in that story was Sauron and whatever his city was. Okay, that's what happens when the social becomes unhinged from the natural. That's when the social becomes pathological. Okay, and what we saw throughout the movie was things being corrected where the social had come out unhinged from the natural. Okay, so we've had the steward of Gondor. Okay, things were out of balance there. The social had become pathological. All right, what was needed was for that to be corrected and the natural state of things restored. The king returned, and then that integrated the two. And it's no coincidence that the king had spent his time in the wilderness. All right, and The Watchmen, if you want to look at popular culture, that's a comic book series turned into a movie. At the end, Rorschach had to be murdered to save the world. He could not tell a lie that would save the world, so he had to be murdered by the, quote, good guys in order to save the world. Okay, that was the destroying of the world and all that stuff. That was the social that had become pathological. And the writers understood all of this. It was no coincidence that Rorschach himself was antisocial, extremely antisocial. Okay, so these concepts have been around forever. And for me, this was the scary part. For so long, I just assumed, well, it's just corruption and just stupidity, insanity with the progressives that, are pushing so many of the things they're talking about, like men can just be women and there's no difference between women and men. And, okay, well, we all know that's nonsense, right? And I know a lot of the people saying that know that it's nonsense, and so I'm thinking, the inmates must be running the asylum. What's worse than that? It's far worse than that. What they're doing is very rational. When people become so caught up in the social that they lose all concept of the natural, the pure, what is pure, what is honest, what is true, what is good, then they'll say anything. For the Marxist, the post-Marxists, neo-Marxists, whatever you want to call them now, the communists. All right, for them, everything's about power. When the natural is no longer involved, it can be. It can be about anything you want it to be. And for so many people, that is the motivation driving them when they become all about the social. I want to move up in my position. I want to maintain my job. Okay, now those of us that are oriented more towards the natural, we would look at someone lying in order to keep their job as cowardice. We have a term for that. It's a very old term. Is it really cowardice, though, if they're right in that knowing if they speak up, it's going to cost them their job and it's not going to make a difference? Now, if everyone spoke the truth, it would make a difference. But if only one person does, they're going to get squashed by the social. And ancient Rome. I mean, we can see examples of this all throughout ancient Rome. Okay, and this is where it gets even scarier. Okay, communism is the complete removal of the natural. Communism is the social in complete charge and complete rule. Right. That's why communism does not work. That's why why you always end up with a nut job at the top and millions dead. That's why you end up with a Stalin. That's why you end up with a Mao. That's why you get a Castro. Okay. Truth, honesty, goodness is not part of the system in communism. It's all about the social. The natural's completely irrelevant. Now for the farmers, the natural is very important. Okay, when in communism, Stalin, Mao, whoever's running the show, they don't care if millions starve to death. Right, the natural is irrelevant for them, and everybody within the system are focused on the social just to stay alive. Okay. In a system that is completely dominated by the social, you know if you violate social terms, norms, rules, whatever, that's the end of your life. Okay. The natural's kind of irrelevant. Whereas in the natural world, you know you have to follow natural rules. You have to plant crops at a certain time if you're going to have a harvest to feed yourself. If you don't follow the natural rules, then that's the end of your life and your families. Okay, which system is it more important for you to follow? Well, it depends on the environment you're in. Right, so is it cowardice to go against the social as an individual when you know what the result's going to be? The end of your career, the end of your livelihood, in the case of communism, that has become that pathological, the end of your life, possibly the end of your family's life. All right, it's only those of us that are thinking about this from the natural point of view would call lying in a situation like that cowardice. Anybody that's actually in that situation for long enough, the culture itself, the values of the culture are going to change to where it revolves entirely around the social. And at that point, that's when it becomes evil. Okay, and now, where does God fit into all of this? Well, where God fits into all of this is God is what integrates all of this for us. That's God's great gift to us and Jesus Christ. That's what the Bible does. And we can see this over and over in the Bible, from the Garden of Eden to the time in the wilderness for the children of Israel, 40 years in the wilderness. They were being removed from the social. They were becoming pure again after having been with the slaves of the Egyptians. And then what Jesus, I think, besides teaching us logic and reason and how to treat each other properly, he's applying logic and reason to how we should treat each other. He's giving us that. So he's bringing the natural and integrating it with the social. To do unto others as we would have them do unto us. To love thy neighbor as thyself. The golden rule. We're going to discuss the implications of all of this a lot more in the future because it's that important. Okay, I cannot think of a single civilization that has ever existed that became completely dominated by the social that didn't collapse. And there isn't one. All right, and right now in the West, we're becoming dominated by the social quickly, and all Western nations. All right, it's not going to end well. The emperor has no clothes. All right, most of you are familiar with the story. For those of you that aren't, the super quick paraphrased version. Emperor wanted the finest suit of clothes there were. His tailor gave him literally nothing and said, put this on. This is the finest, thinnest cloth there is. He put it on. He literally had nothing on. But everybody around him was afraid to tell him that. So, oh yeah, that's the finest cloth ever. And he believed it. And then it took a little kid that didn't know no better and who was honest to walk up and say, you don't have any clothes on. The emperor has no clothes. What happens when a city of however many millions of people reach that point of being so far removed from reality that they can believe anything? The two have to be integrated, the social and the natural. We can't go all natural either. And even in religions. That's why the West has been so prosperous and so successful. Christianity and Judaism integrated the two properly. Okay, whereas Islam, it's oriented too much toward the social. Where Buddhism, it's oriented too much toward the natural. We need both. All right, that's our best existence right there as people. That's what the Bible tells us in so many different ways throughout the text. That's what God has revealed to us through the Bible. Okay, we just, at least me, and maybe I'm just new to the party here. I've just never thought of it this way. It's never been this clear or clear at all for me as it is right now. So, and the implications, yeah, they're pretty profound. So we will be talking about this more in the future. Okay, my break's over. I got to go back to work now. God bless and have a great day.